What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts with the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Daniella Bruce, and thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. We've got our Locked On NHL host here to tell you everything you need to know from the night in hockey. The Blackhawks ended the Golden Knights' playoff hopes in a shootout in last night's biggest game.
The best performance.
Hold up, hold up, hold up.
The Vegas Golden Knights went into last night's game hanging on to their playoff hopes by a thread with only a couple of games remaining in the regular season. The Blackhawks cut that final thread in a shootout, and Locked On Blackhawks has the story from the side that ended the Golden Knights season.
Blackhawks play spoiler and defeat the Golden Knights 4-3 in a shootout, officially eliminating them from playoff contention. What's up, everyone? This is Jack Bushman from Locked On Blackhawks. Tonight, it was the final game of the season at the United Center, and the Hawks were taking on a desperate Vegas Golden Knights team that needed to come away with a win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. And they would also need some help from the Arizona Coyotes as well, because if the Dallas Stars picked up just 1 point in that game, then that also would eliminate Vegas from the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's actually what ended up happening. The game between Dallas and Arizona ended up going into overtime. So technically, the Blackhawks didn't need to win this one in order to knock Vegas out of playoff contention. But hey, it was certainly nice to pick up one final win at the UC before it's all said and done, before the Hawks wrap up their season on Friday up in Buffalo. And it was actually the first time the Blackhawks have picked up back-to-back wins at home since way back in early January, well over 3 months ago. So for all the fans who made the trek down to the UC this evening for a meaningless game, at least for their team, definitely nice to send them off on a high note. They actually got to see a pretty entertaining game of hockey, a lot of back and forth action in this one. And early in the first period, the third line was buzzing for the Hawks. Sam Lafferty set up Taylor Radish for 2 goals. That was Radish's first career multi-goal game in the NHL, and that now gives him 10 points in his first 20 games since being acquired from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sure looking like he could be a key piece of this rebuild here in Chicago. So those 2 goals from Radish put the Blackhawks ahead 2-1 after 20 minutes, but the same issues keep haunting this team. No lead ever is safe. The Blackhawks ended up blowing leads of 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2. This game ended up going into a shootout, but the stone wall that is Kevin Lankinen, not only did he stop 37 of the 40 shots that he faced in the regulation plus overtime, but he also stopped all 7 shootout attempts for the Vegas Golden Knights. Tyler Johnson picks top corner past Logan Thompson, and that gives the Blackhawks one final victory at home before they wrap up their season on Friday in Buffalo. For more coverage on this shootout victory from the Hawks, be sure to tune into tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your team every day.
The Jets don't have anything left to play for this season, but the future looked bright on Wednesday as Eric Comrie picked up his first career shutout in net. Locked On Jets recaps the big night for the Winnipeg goaltender.
Hello, friends. Harrison Lee of Locked On Winnipeg Jets here, coming to you live after a 4-0 victory for the Winnipeg Jets over the Philadelphia Flyers. Does the game mean much? No. But milestone-wise, yeah, Eric Comrie got his first NHL shutout, a pretty big deal. We are super happy for him, and obviously a very exciting time. And speaking of young Jets, Winnipeg has signed one of its own draft picks, Chaz Lucius, to a 3-year entry-level contract. We'll explore the implications of all of this on Thursday's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, so be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, and see you soon on the friendly skies.
The Canadiens won last night, but wins haven't mattered for a while for that team. More importantly, Montreal secured last place in the league, and Locked On Canadiens is already looking forward to draft day.
Hi everyone, this is Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens, and the Habs may have beat the Rangers 4-3 in tonight's game. However, the more important news is that they are now the first team in NHL history to finish 32nd overall, thereby securing the best chance at getting the first overall pick in the NHL draft lottery, which happens on May 10th, and picking first overall at the 2022 NHL draft in July in Montreal. It seems a little bit poetic, but they did need an assist from the Arizona Coyotes. And at the same time, in that New York Rangers game, while the Rangers were resting their stars, it has to be said, the Habs weren't playing particularly exceptionally brightly. They did secure the win. And more importantly, Nick Suzuki hit the 60-point total. And it's the first time, I believe, since 1988 that a young Canadian, or he's the youngest player since 1988 to do that. At the same time, Mike Hoffman and Jeff Petrie had really, really good games scoring. And Jeff Petrie even had 2 goals. And this is really going to help their trade value. Jeff Petrie has requested a trade in the past, as you already know, and this is going to help the Canadiens try to find a trading partner. And Mike Hoffman will probably be a better fit on a team that is, in fact, poised to succeed at the moment. There aren't enough players to on the Montreal Canadiens right now to bring out the best in him, so they both raised their trade value. But the most important news of the night is now the Canadiens have clinched the 32nd overall position. I don't know if that's something to be happy or proud about, but it does help them a lot, and we'll be covering that on Locked On Canadiens. Will be available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, so check us out there.
The Arizona Coyotes could have played spoiler for the Stars last night, but it turns out their win wouldn't be enough to keep Dallas out of the playoffs. But Arizona did still beat a now playoff team. Locked On Coyotes tells you more about the hot streak in Arizona.
Well, the cardiac chaotic Coyotes are back because they didn't put chaos in the rest of the league, but they gave the chaos scare after coming back from a 3-0 deficit late in the third period against the Dallas Stars and coming out with the overtime win, 4-3. Final score over the Dallas Stars. What a game for Arizona. What a last few games for Arizona as they're getting ready to close out the season. Again, all these players showing they got stuff to prove. Let's go ahead and make that shout out to Travis Boyd on his second straight game-winning goal. This one happening in overtime. And my God, what a performance. Once again, the comeback, the second time in 3 games. The Arizona Coyotes come back from a 3-0 deficit in the third period. Just absolutely unbelievable what they are doing to close out the year. They still got one more game left, standing at 55 points on the season. And it's their final home game of the season, their final game at Gila River Arena ever. So are we going to see anything interesting off of that one? We might as well see it. We're going to talk about it on the next episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Stars had mixed emotions after last night. Dallas is in the playoffs, but still has to figure out why it lost to the lowly Coyotes. Locked On Stars takes a shot at diagnosing the problem with the playoffs awaiting.
Some mixed feelings in the American Airlines Center on Wednesday night as the Dallas Stars lose a 4-3 overtime game to the Arizona Coyotes, in which they blew a 3-0 lead in the third period. But the Dallas Stars get the 1 point they needed to clinch a playoff spot, which means the Dallas Stars will be participating in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. Hey, everybody, this is Dane Lewis with the Locked On Stars podcast, coming to you on Wednesday night outside the American Airlines Center after the Dallas Stars Arizona Coyotes game. Again, a disappointing loss, a pretty frustrating and maybe concerning loss, just in the manner in which the Stars lost this game, but they got the point that they needed, and they're going to the playoffs, which is all that matters. It took us all season to get there, but I know I'm thankful for this team making the playoffs because I'm excited to see what they can do once they're there, and it's also good because they get one final tune-up game on Friday against the Anaheim Ducks, and those points matter because the Stars could still hold on to the 7th spot in the Western Conference, which means they would get a matchup with the Calgary Flames, but they would need to win that game against Anaheim, and we would need the Nashville Predators to lose some games as well to close out the season. And they play the Colorado Avalanche in Colorado on Thursday night, so that is a huge game to be on the lookout for. We will talk about this in game in its entirety with Locked On Arizona Coyotes on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Stars, and I can't wait to see you there.
And that's all for Locked On Now NHL today. Thank you again for making Locked On Now your first listen every weekday. Now that you're done here, make your second listens Locked On NHL and, of course, your team's local Locked On podcast. I'm Daniella Bruce, and this has been Locked On Now.